We have Amish Tripathi and Sudhir Kakkar in conversation with our moderator Urvashi Butalia. Amish Tripathi has been described as India's first literary pop star by world-renowned film director Shekhar Kapoor, India's Tolkien by Business Standard, and the Paulo Coelho of the East by Business World. Amish's unique combination of crackling storytelling, religious symbolism, and profound philosophies has made him an overnight publishing phenomenon, with spiritual guru Deepak Chopra hailing his books as archetypal and stirring. Forbes magazine has listed Amish among the 100 most influential celebrities in India, and he has also received the Society Young Achievers Award for Literature in 2013. Sudhir Kakkar is a psychoanalyst and novelist who lives in Goa. His many honors include the Cardinal Award of Columbia University, Boyer Prize for Psychological Anthropology of the American Anthropological Association, Germany's Goethe Medal, Rockefeller Residency, MacArthur Fellowship, and the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany, the country's highest civilian honor. As the psychoanalyst of civilizations, the French weekly Le Nouvel Observateur listed Kakkar as one of the world's 25 major thinkers, while the leading German weekly Die Zeit has profiled him as one of the 21 thinkers for the 21st century. Kakkar is the author of 17 books of non-fiction and 4 of fiction, and his books have been translated into 22 languages around the world. Writer, publisher, feminist, and historian Urvashi Butalia was born in Ambala, India in 1952. Butalia's writing focuses on the modern history of India and on partition and oral histories in particular. She has also written on gender, communalism, fundamentalism, and the media. In 1998, she wrote the award-winning The Other Side of Silence, Voices from the Partition of India. It has been one of the most influential books in South Asian studies of the past decade. It remained at the top of India's bestseller list for over 6 months and won the Oral History Book Association Award in 2001, as well as the Nikkei Asia Award for Culture in 2003. May I please request the panelists to come on stage.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Yes or no? Yes, okay. Okay, so welcome to this afternoon's session when I'm going to be talking to 2 extremely eminent, extremely different men about sexism and about sexism in Hindu mythology. So I guess it's quite appropriate to put a feminist at the center of this debate and to be talking to these 2 eminent gentlemen. I've been wondering, what I'm going to do with this session and what I'm going to ask them to speak about. So I had lots of discussions just now with both Sudhir and Amish and was a little bit clearer, not too much. And then just as I left the author's room to come here, a crow flew past and did its business on my hair. And everybody said that's a good sign because now the discussion will go well. So maybe it was Shiva in another form who came past to wish us well for the discussion. So I'm going to start really with the question that this panel poses. But what's interesting is we have, as I said, 2 very different people, 2 very different men. The one might have been engineer, Sudhir Kakkar, might have been doctor, and somebody who ended up being India's foremost psychoanalyst, somebody who's, I suppose it would not be wrong to say, Sudhir, cast in the Freudian mode, or you studied that in the beginning, and yet someone who has had a strong and abiding interest in spirituality, in shamanism, in myth, in biography, and more lately in writing fiction, but fiction that addresses a whole range of things that have to do with the inner lives of people, with the inner lives of human beings, with human behavior. And many of us grew up on his early work on childhood, on shamans and doctors and so on. And interestingly, he's now turned to fiction. The other, as you've been told, and as all of us know, India's highest sold author ever so far, in English and I think in all languages, young as they come, somebody who started off self-publishing, somebody who is a business management background person, a might have been historian, who comes from a family that's deeply religious, whose family actually influenced him to start writing on the questions that he had about religion, and who ended up writing a book that many publishers did not look at, or writing actually 3 books in the end, but which ended up being really the best-selling book so far. And we won't even talk about the crores of money that has happened, but it enabled him to give up banking, life insurance, and so on, and take unusually to a life of writing, which is not something that many people are able to do. So it's something that for publishers like me sort of restores your faith in publishing, that it is possible to economically survive, because you've also put your publishers on that path of sort of earning decent amounts of money. So I'm going to ask you both, and Sudhir, possibly you first, to address this question. Is Hindu mythology sexist? Is there a straight answer to that question?
It's, well, first of all, thank you for moderating, and thank you for being here, because of course all this whole audience is for you. I mean, I'll only get one first rose, so thank you for...
No, I think you're quite a rock star as well. Don't be modest.
This audience is here because of Times of India's marketing power.
Okay. Urvashi, I think the question as it is framed is a very modern one, because mythology, I mean, Indian mythology is like a palm set on which various times people have put more and more. So mythology in Rig Veda is very different from the ones which then the transition period of Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puran. And then each of those periods requires its own source code book. So the question we are being asked is to address from our source book now of what people did that. Given that now we know that all the myths about women have been composed by men. If there are women who have composed myths about men or women, we don't have them. So in that sense, you could say it is sexist. But that has been, I think, a common thing in most cultures, that myths about women have been composed by men.
But, okay, a further question, further question then is, why is it that the sexism in mythology, which is, of course, there, why is it that that has so much more resilience than its opposite?
Okay. Now, what you are asking, at least I'm translating it, since men compose the myths, what is it that the myths they have composed about women tell them about their fears or hopes or wishes about women? And one, as you're saying, is, well, I think we should use the word sexism now.
Yeah.
Now, is sexism, if you say, if it is only putting down, true enough. I mean, you'd have myths. But sexism, if it is also of seeing women as very powerful, that is also very true. So the Indian mythology has both parts. Women as something despised, women as something very high, women as something to be feared, women as something to be loved. So sexism is a big part. But as I said, today's source book requires us to look at only through the lens of sexism, which we, of course, will do. I mean, we'll do just here. We're literally aligned.
Okay, Amish, your answer to that?
I think Mr. Kakkar touched on it quite well, and if you look at Gestalt concept that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and that in a sense can be said to be true not just of Hindu mythology but of all cultures, of all scriptures, of all religions. There will be anti-women interpretations that do exist, that is a fact, and there are pro-women interpretations that also exist. And one can find this across. For example, if one looks at Christianity, the books of Leviticus, the books of Deuteronomy can be very, some of the interpretations from there can be disturbing for those of us who are pro-women. But you also have the golden rule. You have the wonderful book of Matthew. You have book of Luke, which says the kingdom of heaven exists within all, not just within men. So you have those interpretations as well. Similarly, in Islam, the Surah An-Nisa can be, some of the interpretations can be disturbing, but the lovely stories of Khadija al-Kubra, the wife of the Prophet, a very empowered woman, those are inspiring as well. And it's similarly true of Hindu mythology as well. This is not just in the Puranas and the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, as Mr. Kakkar said. That's right. Those form a part of the Smruti section of Hindu scriptures, if you will. Smruti is considered a slightly further away from divinity section. There are two sections in Hindu scriptures. One is the Shruti section, which has been heard, which is kind of similar to the revealed scriptures of Semitism. Kind of, not exactly, but kind of. And then there's a Smruti section, which the root word of that is memory, where it is believed that this is further away from divinity. It has been created by human beings. So it would be, the headband's like really tight, yeah, that's why I took it off. And probably the sound doesn't come well as well. Yeah, so, and the Ramayana and the Mahabharata form a part of the Smruti section. If you
lose cases against lawyers who tell stories in court. I mean, these are kind of empirical studies. So the storytelling is our, I think, strength, of Indian strength, and also the strength of our mythology. And to lose it to history facts, I think would be a big, big loss.
Wonderful. Mr. Kakkar, you've actually, wonderful. He deserves a round of applause. It's exactly the thought that I have. And I want to make 2 points on this. One is, what is the concept of time that exists in the Indian way? And I should clarify, not just in the Indian way, in the ancient ways, across the world. In Greece, in Egypt, in ancient Southeast Asia and China, time was a circular concept. Yeah? It wasn't a linear concept. The linear concept of time is a modern Western import. If you're looking at time in a linear concept, that this happened after this, this happened after this, this happened after this, then facts appear important. If you are looking at it in a circle, like, in the ancient Hindu way, and this is the way it was across the ancient world as well, I'm not just across the world, not just in India, time would be measured in Sattva, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga, and then it would go in a circle once again. If you're going in a circle, all right, then actually where you are doesn't really matter, because something which was before you can actually appear after you, depending on the circle that you're looking at. So really, then do the facts really matter? And the second point that I want to say is the root of the word mythology. Right? If you look in the dictionary, there's a very derogatory meaning to that word. It said that mythology is that some story which could have had some kernels of truth, some point of time. There's a derogatory approach to mythology. I traveled to Greece many years ago, and I know that the root of the word mythology is a Greek word called mythos. So I asked a Greek person I'd met, that what do the Greeks think is the meaning of mythos? And she told me this very interesting meaning. She said, according to them, mythos is that which hides the truth, right? And your purpose is to discover the truth within. That is the purpose of mythos, right? If you approach it from that perspective, the story itself doesn't matter. Your purpose is to discover the philosophical truth within, because that's what helps you lead your life, right? Which is why you find, and since Indians understand this, we keep adapting our myths, right? Myths keep changing. We have so many versions of the Ramayana, and that's just one. They have interpretations of the Mahabharata, we have so many versions of the Puranas, because the story itself doesn't matter as much. What matters is the philosophical truth within. So, and what actually impacts our life is how we live it, the philosophy that we live our life in. So, I mean, for me, mythology is obviously far more interesting and exciting. And spot on, sir.
I want to come back to this thing of the philosophical truth. There is never really one philosophical truth, which is why, you, as you say, you keep on, mythology keeps getting recreated. I want to ask you both to address this question of the paradoxes and the contradictions inside myth. I mean, for example, Shiva the destroyer, but it's the phallus that's worshipped, which is not really a concept, it's the creative part of it, yeah? Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little about this, both of you, about what does it mean actually?
You see, let me put it. The importance of mythology